The conditions that our Savior was born in was horrendous. Horrendous. We today, family services would be called. The child would be taken and placed in foster care, is what would happen today if this was to be the way a child was born today. And he's the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. But we're going to look Luke chapter 2, starting verse 1. And it came to pass in those days, went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Now I want us to understand what this is. This is a census. Caesar told everybody, go back to where you're from and be counted. I want to see where your property is. Go back to your homeland, because where will the Jewish property be held? Would Joseph's family property be in the Nazareth? Nope, he is the son of David. Where is his property? Bethlehem. You have to go back to where your family inheritance is. I want to see how much ground you own so that I can tax you on the ground that you own. So go back and be counted. Now there's some other thoughts that you've heard of the book of life. The thought is that every town had a book of life. And when you were born, you were written in the book of life in that town. And then from there, your name, when you died, you would be blotted out of the book of life. That may be true. I think that book was kept in the temple. And we'll get to that when we get there. When Jesus goes to the temple to be for the payment and for his naming. But let's talk about, so now a decree was made. Now, it's important to understand, was Caesar acting on Caesar's own accord? Folks, we see here a decree at the perfect worst time. It was God's plan all along that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. But where was Mary and Joseph living? Where were they? Nazareth. Why would they have made the trip to Bethlehem at this time? Because Mary is big and pregnant. This is not just a simple, this is a pretty good trip. They didn't jump in the car and get on the highway and drive up to from Nazareth up to Bethlehem, or over and down a little bit. They didn't drive there. They got on at best. I mean, if they were wealthy, oh, by the way, they're not wealthy, they're poor. Matter of fact, they are broke. They're poor. They got on maybe a donkey, maybe a cart, no springs. Ladies, can you imagine trying to travel like this when you're 9 months pregnant? And they leave their home on a bumpy cart or donkey all the way down and over to Nazareth, over to Bethlehem. Could you imagine Mary going, Joseph, are you kidding me? You want me to get in the cart and go down there with you? I mean, my wife said that, getting in the car. You want me to get in the car and go with you? I'm going to stay right here. I'm sick. I'm not feeling good. Actually, that's not true. She was very good as a pregnant lady. But you can imagine. Not only that, do you think they checked in the hospital in Bethlehem? Her support system. Now, some of the family would have gone as well, but we're never really told about the father and parents of Joseph. They would have gone to Bethlehem, but she would not have had the support system there to have the baby, the same as she would have had back in Nazareth, where home was. So now they go to Bethlehem, and we find that we get that Luke. Now we've transitioned from Matthew to Luke. So in this gospel, we find a different emphasis. Luke wrote to the Greco-Romans. These were humanistic people. He wanted to write to them and tell them that Jesus was the perfect man. So Jesus So as you're looking at what Luke does, and how Luke records things, he's recording things in their train of thought. So they would want to know, when did this happen? Where did this happen? Why did this happen? So Luke records that Caesar Augustus gave the decree, and then he lists other people. There's 5 people listed here. And this was when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the passage. I apologize for that. This was when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. Now, that gives us a little bit of time frame here. This gives us a time frame. Now, we could talk about all the different things that when Jesus was born, but Jesus Christ was born either 5 BC, late 5 BC, or early 4 BC. Now, there's a lot of calculations involved in that. If you want to read a good book, Pentecost has a good book, The Life and Words of Jesus Christ. He's got a really good section on that. You can go read that. But about 4 or 5, late 5 BC, early 4 BC. And remember, it counts backwards as it comes to the timeline. It counts backwards. So that would have been winter in Bethlehem. So now you've got Mary traveling, big and pregnant, in the winter, in the open, going to Bethlehem. And we find that, wow, really, our Savior traveling like this on his way to Bethlehem. God was in control, that even down to the time and place that our Savior would be born, he was in control. He moved Caesar to number the people, to take this census at just the right time that Mary would deliver in Bethlehem. She wouldn't have time to get to Bethlehem and get back. She would deliver there. Our Savior, and most importantly, prophecy would be fulfilled. That Jesus Christ would be born in Bethlehem. That right there is enough. That right there is enough, I would think, for us to start getting a grasp of how difficult and precarious a position these 2 young people were in. You remember, Mary is 16 years old at the most. 16 years old at the most. Joseph, a little older than her. But 16 and experiencing this. We never have record of her mama being there, her daddy being there. We never have a record of anybody else at the manger, do we? They weren't at the White. They weren't there either. They weren't there either. There were some shepherds. There were some sheep and goats and cattle, possibly. But it was Joseph and Mary and the Lord. You know what? I think we'll find that was enough.